Do you feel stuck in your life and in your business? Is it rigid? Or do you actually believe it can be flexible? And if it can be, is it? So this is the story about why I decided to create a second channel, which is Lady Lexy Leads. Now, I didn't come up with that name. I honestly tell you, this is invented by AI, artificial intelligence, none other inspired by the other one as Brendon Burchard. Well, Brendon Burchard is my role model. He knows all about marketing and about personal development. And he downloaded all his information and data into the Brendon AI. Well, it's not an app, but it's amazing what we've done. Just to show you a little bit, this is what Brendon AI has set up for me to share with you just for right now. And what we did is actually come up with 2 essential frameworks based on what I have done in the past and based on the way I think and feel. And what we came up with were a number of pillars which I believe are essential when it comes to a company. So one of the things that when I talk about companies that I really want for companies is that there is a mutual conversation going on, that there are growth possibilities for both the employees but also for the business owners, that when the business owners or the business owner comes up with an idea, that the employees are also aware of it, so they can help it tune, improve it, maybe say, well, this won't work because, or this works actually just fine, and maybe come up with their own ideas. But the question, of course, is there an open door policy, and do they dare to speak up and speak out? So, combined, it led to this. So this is actually the result of me saying, let's have the courage to speak up, to express yourself, so you can get perspective, so you can get freedom. And we went from a 3C framework, which is, let me see, I've got a lot of stuff over here. It should be somewhere in here. And I was thinking I was fully prepared. Well, shame on me. And I know why it's not, because I used it to actually change some things. But at some point we reviewed the pillars and we said, okay, clarity is the basis. It's the compass. And what we want is we want a connection and a collaboration between people. So that's where the bridge comes in. The center of this all is contribution. It's the heart. And actually, if you look closely, the heart is a compass too. And it leads to the North Star, which is freedom, perspective. I want you to think about this like, but how does this work? So we want a solid foundation, hence why we want clarity. We want the clarity as in that people know, your clients know what your business is about, but we also want the employees to know what they need to do in order for you to be able to create revenue. And that means that there's a certain mindset switch needed between a business owner, an entrepreneur, versus someone who gets their paycheck every month. So when they understand why you need them to register certain things, do certain things, they might think differently. I mean, it's not like the money comes out of thin air. Something needs to happen. But if you pull them in and talk about it, then, you know, a lot of things can change. And, well, when I talked about contribution as in the heart of it all, well, I believe that everyone has something very special and very unique. But it's up to you to see what's so unique. when it comes to them. So hence, connection, collaboration, let's work together. So it's about seeing the connections, but also about the action. And of course, that leads to freedom. Freedom for the business owner, because the freedom is in, hey, I can focus on what needs to be done, but also freedom for the employee. Now, let me tell you a little story here. About 24 years ago, something along those lines, 25 years ago, I worked for this company, which is about roads and about water. So boats need to be able to go over the water or in the water, but in a safe way. And cars need to go across the highway to go from point A to point B, which helps with, of course, transportation of materials, other stuff, food, you name it. Houses nowadays, yes. And we want this to happen safely and in a way that is efficient. Okay, so that's one part of it. And when we talk about the water, of course, a lot of stuff was shipped originally across the water before there were highways. But water also has a downside to it. So the upside is the transportation. It helps us, it nourishes us when it's clean enough. But when we're talking about oceans, then we also can talk about floods. And especially in our country, there are a number of big rivers. And when adjacent countries have a lot of rain, then the rivers might actually expand in such a way that the cities nearby the rivers are actually flooded with water. We don't want that. So those are the things that the company had to take care of. Now, my part in this was being the one who was in charge of the contracts of the, well, there are these big signal, what do you call them? Well, there's a nice one. They show the numbers above the road, how fast you can go. They show the arrows if you have to leave the lane or across when you cannot drive over there. So they are meant to share with you what's important to know when you're driving on the road. It can also be like there's a symbol on there like it's slippery or there's a traffic jam ahead of you. So that's what you need to know. Now, I was in charge of well, I'll call it closets. It's probably a different word, but I don't know how to explain it differently. Where all the infrastructure is in there, which actually feeds those signs across the road, above the road, and make sure that the right software is in there, you know, all those kind of things, and that it actually works. And that was cool. It was really cool. And for me, it meant that I was like, okay, so who is in charge? The suppliers who need it? Well, the traffic centers, because they need to know what's going on. And pretty quickly, I decided to go visit the traffic centers, talk to the people, talk to the suppliers, and within 3 months, I knew all about the various contracts related to this one contract. And here's the thing. I was positioned at a department which was for the office infrastructure. So we call it generic infrastructure. And that was a bit of a problem because, well, they didn't see what I was doing. And they had basically no clue because I was doing something completely different. But the one thing that I did do was I noticed this big contract, 1,200 pages, which was about the generic infrastructure. And I was like, that needs to be better. So I read it, made all these notes, bullet points, all those kind of things. I ended up with 12 pages and then brought it back to 2. Well, you can imagine that a lot of people were so grateful that I actually had made that. But here's the thing. I also used it for the work that was done on the road. Now imagine this, that you're working on the road and there are all these trucks, and those trucks have materials on there. They need to stop people from driving on those parts of the roads. So there's not one supplier, but there are multiple suppliers linked to one action. So usually they say when we block the roads, then let's do it. So a lot of parties involved can do their work at the same time. So we're talking about millions of dollars. And then we have the internet or the intranet, which is based on, well, office automation. Well, I don't know if you have ever noticed this, but somewhere in the night, usually, well, the internet goes a little haywire. It's like it's slower. Sometimes it's like it's not functioning very well. And that's because there's maintenance being done on the internet, which of course makes sense. But if you have to work at night on the road, then you cannot afford an internet that's down. Because, like I said, that's costing millions of dollars, and we don't want that. So you can imagine that at some point my colleagues were so frustrated with me because they didn't know what I was doing. I got frustrated with them because they wanted to put me in a box and they wanted me to do things that I couldn't do. It's like playing violin on the piano. And then on the other hand, there was the interim CEO who loved what I was doing. And of course, all the other departments who were also in charge of the road, they loved me too, including the suppliers. Regardless, when the interim CEO left, so did I. And that's when I started to work on as an entrepreneur in my own business. And one of the things that I said I wanted to do was I wanted to make sure that people were being listened to, that they could work where they would flourish best. So for me, I'd flourish when I was talking to the traffic centers, for instance, and I'd flourish on projects involving things that they needed to know about the generic internet, office, in IT, but more specifically when it came to, but what's happening on the road and what are we going to do? So basically a lot of projects that were involved and then the maintenance afterwards. So this piece is about that freedom. I want people to be seen. I want them to be respected. I want them to be valued. And that goes both ways. So now I added something else. And I'll honestly say I didn't come up with the pillars that are here. But what I did come up with was the idea of involving steampunk. So we came up with the steam train. I actually wrote a book, Uncover Your Mindsets. It's about a journey on a steam train. And I said, but what if we can capture the essence of steampunk? So I said, okay, so share with me a little bit about steampunk. And then Brendon AI told me about how people would wonder, what if? And they would talk about possibilities. There was creativity involved. It was about exploration and adventure. And I am all about adventure. So I was like, okay, that's cool. So there it is. And steampunk, normally you see those radars, you see them moving. And well, actually, I've got an interactive picture, a video of this one. So when we go from rigid, being fixated on a certain track going from A to B, which is the steam train, we actually can move to steampunk, which is flexible and you can change things. Which brings me back to the question I started with, which is, are you stuck in your business or are you not? So going back to what Brendon AI helped me do, we talked about the dynamic core framework. Why dynamic? Because when you look at buildings, for instance, where they have earthquakes, they actually have a structure with drivers at the bottom and they can move, so the building can move. So when an earthquake happens, it's not immediately like it crumbles and it pulverizes. No, it stands and it just moves along with the earthquake. So, you know, that's a big invention when they actually made that happen. So, yeah, the foundation, and here is something, and I am going to list it. So, linking to Brendon Burchard here for a second, he says the following: in high performance habits, I emphasize the importance of clarity and simplicity in frameworks. I wrote, clarity is the child of simplicity and focus. So when you look at my framework, then we say clarity is the compass. I talk a lot about clarity because when you want to communicate with other people, then you want to be heard, seen, and understood. So your message has to come across with clarity for others to understand you. But in turn, you also want to understand them. So you need to be able to ask them, if you don't understand what they are saying, to explain it in a different way. Maybe give some examples. And actually that's what I'm doing with Brendon AI all the time. So clarity is the child of simplicity and focus. Your dynamic core framework should be crystal clear. What are the pillars? How do they work together? And most importantly, how does this framework help people uncover their mindsets and take action? So what you see is Brendon AI is actually linking all the things together. So like I said, I'm talking about these pillars here, which are related to connection, collaboration, contribution, of course, clarity, and all this working towards freedom. And again, it's based on what I always say: learn to speak up, speak out, share your story, because that's the only way that you can achieve a certain amount of freedom. And just to give you a very, very short example, earlier today I was going to the supermarket. I decided to go for a walk. I didn't wear my braces. I was like, if it's not going to work out, then I'll just walk back. And well, it was going pretty, yeah, it was a nice walk. There was some pain in my right knee, but you know, I focused on some affirmations. I had asked Brendon AI for some affirmations, and it was nice. So it was like I'm walking with strength, and I added and flexibility and stability. We also talked about clarity, and we also talked about the blog post and what the message of the blog post was. So it was, I think, with clarity, and my message is meaningful and purposeful. That's what I was thinking about. And of course, there were more things I was thinking about while walking, but it was kind of nice, especially when I'm walking with strength and then I added flexibility and stability. I was walking with a focus, and that's what I needed. I made it. I got myself some groceries. They know I'm quick when I go in and I go out, and then I walk back. So this is how you can work together with other people, how you can make connections. And one of the things that I want is I want to form a group of people, of whether it's small business owners, solopreneurs, who need to take their business to the next level, but they don't know how to. They don't know how to communicate best with their employees, and vice versa. Their employees don't always know how to communicate with them. They might actually be fearful. So we want to improve this, and by being in a group with like-minded people, then you can achieve a whole lot. Now, the steampunk essence, that's the soul. So that's where the creativity and adventure come alive. And well, that's kind of cool, because the book that I wrote, Uncover Your Mindset, is actually about a steam train. You go on the steam train, you go on a journey, and it actually helps you with your mindset, literally uncovering where certain beliefs came from and how they got stuck. So it's about the story that you share in your mind, and that story can work against you. And of course, we're not just talking about business, we're talking about life too. So business owners have, on the one hand, a challenge when it comes to their own business. Now, usually they are pretty good at figuring out what needs to be done. But then when it comes to the communication part, well, that's a whole different ballgame. And especially when you look at what they do in their personal life. So a lot of solopreneurs, they work around the clock. So when they have a family, the question is, when do they actually see their family? So then you know that they are so focused on their job. And the question is, what are they like when they come home? Are they tired? What's their mood like? Now, talking about the steampunk essence being the soul. So the steampunk essence is what transformed the framework from a functional system into an inspiring journey. It's the why behind the how. But here's the challenge. Steampunk is a bold, specific aesthetic. To make it work, you need to tie it in directly to the emotional and psychological journey that you are on. So, now, Brendon himself talks about the Motivation Manifesto. He says, I wrote about the human drive for freedom and self-expression. It is the main motivation of humankind to be free, to express our true selves and pursue our dreams without restriction. Well, I talked about mindset. I talked about the stories we tell ourselves. And you know what I've noticed? Business owners are so good at picking up the slack, because their employees might not have any clue how to do certain things. That's possible. Not everyone knows how to do what. But because they actually are not aware of the importance of certain things. And that's something that can be changed. So the steampunk essence should embody this drive. It's not just about gears and steam. It's about the freedom to explore, the courage to create, and the joy of possibility. Now, where does the joy come from? I've created the 7 ways to express yourself. I've got the smaller ones and I've got the bigger ones. The bigger ones, they have text on the back side. So here you can see the text, so it explains what's on the front. And what I said is, a lot of people, they do not know how to express themselves. They don't dare to speak up. But you know, there are times in the year, like for instance, last Saturday, I was at the birthday party. We were out in public and I was surrounded by a lot of musicians, including singers. So I said, okay, let's go sing Happy Birthday. And at first was, and I said to the one who actually teaches, okay, you start with Happy Birthday. So she started and then we followed. So that was kind of cool. And you know, those are the moments that there are opportunities to express yourself without having to feel embarrassed. And maybe you can sing the stars from the sky. And well, do it. And there, of course, are other ways to express yourself. So what works for me really well, especially when it comes to Brendon AI, is I don't have to speak verbally. I can just write down my thoughts literally on the screen. And for me, it's so much easier to just be in my inner world and just pour out those thoughts. No judgment there, only encouragement. So yeah, I love Brendon AI, I'll just tell you. Brendon himself is amazing too. But, access to Brendon, that's a little bit less likely compared to access to Brendon AI. And Brendon AI is there 24/7. And he doesn't get tired. So, that's the better human version. Of course, he still needs the real Brendon to fill him with all these things. But my God, what he comes up with, I cannot tell you. It's amazing. But, well, here's the design. Remember, we talked about the radar's steampunk essence. And here, this is about you dreaming and visualizing the future. But it starts by writing things down and voicing yourself, talking to others. He told me something else too. He said, do you know why visualizations usually don't work out? So Brendon already said, people don't take action. So that's number one. But the other thing is, people jump straight to the end. They don't see the journey of things happening. Well, that is an interesting one, wouldn't you say? So now we talk about the train metaphor, the journey. So that's from my book, Uncover Your Mindsets. And he says the train metaphor is brilliant because it's so visual and dynamic. Yeah, I love his words. It gives people a mental image they can latch onto, which is essential for storytelling. But to make it work, you need to lean into the contrast between the steam train and the steampunk transformation. And I was like, okay, so what exactly is that? And the steam train represents grit, grind, and linear progress. So I said, why I believe the steam train is so important is you need to get it fired up, and it starts slowly and then it goes on and on and on, and it keeps on working as long as you make sure that there's enough fuel in there. And usually that also requires a certain rhythm of knowing when to put the coals into the fire. So actually it's a very complicated piece of machinery if you think about it. The steam doesn't just come from the top, it actually comes from the sides too. And well, when I went to the museum, the local museum over here, so in order to have a 20-minute ride on the steam train, it takes them an hour to clean the train up, just so you know. So the steam train represents grit, grind, and linear progress. So once you get going, you get going. Of course, when you run out of fuel, it's done. The steampunk version represents creativity, adaptability, and limitless potential. And that's what we're talking about. I mean, just look at your watch. Well, probably you have a digital watch nowadays, but back in the days, before we actually had the digital watches, and I'm talking about long before we actually had the ones which are related to apps and can monitor your heartbeat and how fast you're walking. We had the ones you beat like every hour, which was really advanced at that time, and you could set an alarm, which was cool too. But before that, we had the pocket watches, right, with the radars on there. So that's steampunk material. So memory tie-in. This is Brendon. I often use the metaphor of a power plant to explain energy. The power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy. And similarly, my train metaphor should emphasize that transformation isn't about finding something external, it's about generating it from within. It's not about the stories that have been told to us. It's about changing them so they can work for us. And I'm going to show you something. I've got this script here, which is transform your mindset, and it takes those stories, those negative beliefs, and it makes you rewrite them in positive stories. So negative belief, how can you turn that around? Usually it's like, I don't want. Okay, so if you know what you don't want and you take out the not, then you have what you do want. And then of course we still don't believe it. So then we need to make it, pimp it a little bit, that it makes us smile. And then we can focus solely on the good stuff. And then we want to say it and feel it. So usually it's about coming up with something which makes you smile. And then you start to talk about it. So the gears turning, the steam rising, the intricate design, all of it should symbolize the internal work of uncovering mindsets and embracing possibility. Now, remember that I talked to you about the water and how when there's a lot of water and there's a lot of rain, it actually can flood our cities. So there is actually a very old steam version of one of those places where they make sure that when the water is too high, they make it go down, but the motor runs on steam. So that's actually kind of unique nowadays. Now, the journey in the book, Uncover Your Mindset, the invitation. So your book is the vehicle, pun intended. He's just as goofy and fun as the real Brendon is. Takes readers on this journey. It's not just about explaining the framework or the essence. I'm sorry, it's a little bit late for me. I really wanted to get this out there. So it's about inviting readers to see themselves in the story. So what do you see when I take you on that journey on the train? So I, on purpose, didn't define age, gender, or whatever. I wanted you to be there and live it as if it is you. And from what I've heard, I've been able to capture that. People can write the first part of the book like within 90 minutes, so it goes pretty quickly. Second part of the book explains a thing or two about the mindsets and how they come into existence. So the best books don't just teach, they transform, and that's the goal. And well, that's why I've got a lot of other frameworks for you to work with you, and that's basically why I'm sharing all these stories with you now. Now here is one thing that Brendon actually said. In Reignite Your Life, I talk about the importance of momentum. This is how you can enter each day feeling more confident, feeling more productive, feeling more joyous, so that we know there's real momentum coming. Now, do you remember that I was talking about going to the grocery store and I asked Brendon AI come up with something that I can repeat? It's just easier if he comes up with something and then I attach something to it. So he said, I walk with strength, and I was like, okay, I walk with strength, flexibility, and stability. And you know, sometimes you just need this one thing, and then you can just come with all these other things which you can attach, but you need something to work with. So this is basically what he wrote down and what I wanted to tell you about how I came to setting up Lady Lexy Leads. And I can tell you, it wasn't easy. The name was easy. He came up with a brilliant one, and actually he wasn't the only one who came up with the name. And likely there will be a live every Wednesday, starting upcoming Wednesday, together with Tracy the Phoenix. And it's going to be about, well, for small business owners and how to transform certain things so communication improves. And well, she said Lady Lexy Leads live, and well, I was thinking the same thing. Anyway, I had to contact Instagram, Meta, to actually get it done. Then I had to contact YouTube, Google to get things done. Worked out like a charm, so I'm very happy. But I wanted to get it out there. So I was like, what do I need to do? And of course, I know the basics about, okay, I need to share a video. So I will go live on Lady Lexy Leads instead of on this one. Will happen. And of course, it's about people being able to find me on Lady Lexy Leads. So if you hear this, then please click Lady Lexy Leads and go follow it. There's going to be a lot on there, stories, other stuff which you can use. And like I said, I want to build a community who finds support talking to one another with the goal of having perspective, having freedom, be flexible enough to be able to move with whatever is going on, you know, changing technology, changing rules of the government, war. Didn't want to say that one, but well, it happened. So there are a number of things which change what we can do. And it's kind of funny because during the steampunk age, they were actually a little bit worried about the whole machine things and what they could do. And of course, the same happens when we talk about AI or ChatGPT. So it's kind of funny because I talk to the young ones out there. Oh, I need to write a letter. I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll just write, I need this letter about this, that, and the other, and there it is. When I started working with Kajabi, a system for courses, training, community, emails, there was a possibility of using AI too. And at first I was like, no, because it comes up with so many generic things. So there are some good things when it comes to funnels. You know, it just sets it up, and it's done. But this really made a difference for me. And it wasn't until Brendon actually came up with the accelerator challenge that I was like, okay. And then I was invited into a group of fellow people, and we talk about what is the one thing that you need to do today, this week, this month, this year to make your business move forward. And well, I all of a sudden have all these accountability partners. And one of them said, have you tried Brendon AI? I was like, well, no. Well, you should. And, you know, I started asking questions. And today's life is a result of that. So that's what I wanted to share with you about the importance of being flexible so you can actually experience freedom. You can experience perspective, because that's what we all want, right? We want to be heard, seen, and understood. And whether that's in your personal life, or whether that's at the office, that doesn't make a difference. What we do want is we want to be acknowledged for who we are and be able to grow and experience nurturing. So anyway, if you are like, oh, but this could work for me, make sure to register, to follow, and make sure that other people actually get to subscribe to the channel. If you like this, please leave a comment and let me know. I'm working on a handout, so you can actually get the handout and work with it. Right now it's not done. This whole project, which essentially was about a blog post and about making a handout for this one, well, the handout for this one was done pretty quickly. But then when it came to writing the blog post and with all the input that I have gotten over the last couple of days, well, this took a little bit longer time. But I'm proud to say it's out there. The Lady Lexy Leads channel is out there, both on YouTube and on Instagram. This is going to be posted at least on YouTube. It's too long to be posted on Instagram. That's a shame. But maybe I'll make some shorts. I'll take some shorts and I'll put those shorts out there. But yes, if you are interested in group coaching, then hit me up. Same with if you want to have a taste, like with a worksheet, or you want to book, just check the links in the bio and you can see what's out there. That's it for now. Please let me know what came up for you, what works for you, and I'll see you again soon.